Hey, y'all. All right. So, welcome. Thank you for coming. And I know you guys have a lot of places to be and a lot of games to watch. So, thank you for being here. That's just to start out. But today, who read the truth email? Who knows what this is going to be about? Yeah. St. Paul. What about St. Paul? Good. St. Paul. It's called St. Paul, the Great Decision Maker. We're going to definitely talk about St. Paul. We're going to find out why he was so good at making decisions and making a lot of the right decisions. But I'm going to first start off by saying I should not be talking to you guys right now. Okay? I just shouldn't. Because personally, right, like as I reflected on this topic, I should not be talking about this topic. I could talk about this topic, and I will. But I have not dedicated enough time to making the right decisions. Okay? Like things like being here when I'm supposed to be here. So, just flat out, just going to start off by saying that. But why it's possible to talk about this is because St. Paul is an amazing example of a person that makes the right decisions because he does something very specific that I, myself, have not been doing, and many of us don't do on a daily basis. So, St. Paul making decisions. What are some decisions that St. Paul made? Who knows the ministry of St. Paul? Good. We're going to just start off. How many journeys or missions did St. Paul have? Many. Good. How many? Like they're broken up into how many missions? Or journeys. They call them journeys. Anyone? 3. Good. So St. Paul had 3 journeys. Okay? And it all started from when? When did the journey start?
When he saw the light.
Good. When he saw the light, right? When he turned from Saul to Paul. All right? That's when the first journey started. Right? So, what are some decisions in these 3 journeys that St. Paul had to make? Do we want the microphone? Oh, for the streaming. I should wait. St. Paul had to make how many decisions, guys? St. Paul's life. What did he do? Yes?
He listened to the words that were spoken on the road.
Good. Okay, perfect. First decision. He listened to Christ on the road. Right? That was the decision he made. He didn't have to listen. He did. All right? What else?
I think the other decision right afterwards was to go to spend some time with the apostles, learning, not preaching right away.
Good. Perfect. Right? Because at this point, Paul, he was not one of the apostles. He did not follow Christ, right? He persecuted the church. He knew the law, but he didn't know Christ, right? He knew Christ from the conversion, but he wasn't a disciple. He didn't follow Christ. He didn't hear his teachings. So he went to the apostles. Good. What else? What's another decision?
I think before all of this, he decided to persecute the church.
Good. That's a decision. Good. So right now we have 4 decisions this guy's made. All right, I'll give you another decision. The decision to do what? Who was he preaching to? Who did he mainly preach to? Gentiles. Good. Did he start off like that? Did he start off preaching to the Gentiles? Who did he start off preaching to? Huh? Good. Jews. So if it's not Gentiles, the answer is probably Jews. All right? So let's just, if you guys just want to take an educated guess, take a stab at it. All right? So he did not start off preaching to Gentiles. We always say Paul, one of the greatest preachers, preached to the whole world, right? But he actually started in Jerusalem, okay? And what happened? There was a decision he made. Why did he make the decision? Okay, we'll talk about it. All right. So, Paul, well, actually, take a step back. Who was Paul? Paul was what? He was a Jew, right? But he was also what? He was a Roman, right? He was a Roman. What were the rest of the apostles? Jews. From what? Jerusalem, Judea, Galilee, all these different places, right? Right? So he was already distinct, right? Like he's been different from day one. This man has been different from day one. From the start, you hear Paul completely different from the rest of the apostles. Right? Started off persecuting the church, is a Roman, right? Like he is completely different. Right? Like he's very, very educated. All the apostles not that educated. Right? Most of them not educated at all. Okay? So completely different upbringing, completely different background. This guy is like, he is on one island and all the apostles on another island. Okay? So, in a natural being, right? Like, let's say you were going to go out and you're called, actually we're all called to go spread the word of Christ. Right? We're all called to spread the word of Christ. Now, what is the natural thing? Right? What is the natural thing? If you're called to spread the word of Christ, are you going to spread it here? Are you going to spread it to your neighbors right here? The people that already know the word? Where are you going to spread it? Spread it around the world. So this is St. Paul. This is St. Paul's mindset. He's a Roman. He's around Gentiles his whole life, right? Like Rome filled with Gentiles, right? So he's just like, I'm going to go spread the word like I was called to do. So what happens? He converts a guy. What's the guy's name? I didn't know this before this week either. Good. Okay. Guy's name's Titus. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way.
Who's that?
The guy he converts. Converts a guy named Titus.
Ah, yeah.
Yes. Perfect. All right. Good. We're on point. Perfect. We got the okay. We can keep going. So, converts Titus, okay, who was what? He was a Gentile. Okay? He converts Titus and he goes to Jerusalem. Okay? Now he's Titus, him, and Peter and James. James and Peter get word that this guy is now a Christian. He's no longer persecuting the church, but he is now an apostle called from God. Okay? He brings along Titus, the Gentile. Now, where was the decision to be made? Okay, what do you imagine? At this point, Jews don't like Gentiles at all. You're bringing this guy, Titus, to go meet the patriarchs of this new, soon-to-be new religion. All right? So they had this disagreement. Disagreement being that they had a bunch of disagreements, but one of the disagreements being that Gentiles, great, you want them to come, but they have to be circumcised. All right? Now, I don't know if anybody's ever converted somebody here. All right? Now, some of you have. But how hard is it to change the person's entire life to fit Christianity? Right? So the whole spirit of the law, right? Spirit of the law versus the law comes to play here, right? Like a lot of these disagreements come from this is the law, this is what we've been brought up with, this is what we're supposed to do as Jews, and if they want to be part of this newfound thing, they have to do this. Paul, coming from a completely different, absolutely different place, says, no, they just have to know the love of Christ, right? We just have to love them, right? And if they want to take on all these things afterwards, great, but they don't have to be circumcised. They don't have to not eat the meat that is offered to the idols, right? There was a disagreement about eating meat that's offered to the idols. Gentiles ate meat. It's okay, just read about it, okay? So, there are so many foundational things this man, who is not one of the disciples, is fighting for. Against who? Literally the patriarchs, the top of the top. Imagine going to the Pope and be like, you know what, this is what we're going to do. All right, Pope Teregius, all right, I just converted from Islam to Christianity, but here's what we're going to do from now on. All right? All these people, all these rules that you had, forget about it. Okay? So it was a little easier back then because a lot of things weren't really, in place. But these were the laws that they had. Okay? So I just gave you the entire situation. What is the decision Paul made?
To go on his own.
Okay? What does that, okay? And what does that entail? What's that entail? To go on his own, great. Guys, come on.
To preach without the disciples.
Okay? Good. To who? To Gentiles. Okay? So this guy, from that point, actually, the reason why he actually finally made that declaration, Peter and James are going to preach to the Jews and I'm going to preach to the Gentiles, was because they finally came to an agreement that they will not have to be circumcised. Okay? Fine, we'll allow them. They'll come to Christ. They won't have to be circumcised. But, actually, there was no but just like remember the church and remember the poor, aka get us some money, okay? Because there's a lot of poor people and we need to feed them, okay? But that's the agreement they came to. But when they went to actually sit down with James and Peter, okay, then they pretended like, all right, like I'm sitting with my friends, and then a group of other people come in that are closer to them and they just leave. Or they pretend like they don't know you. That's what happened, right? They're sitting with Paul and Titus and Peter and James and let's say a group of other people, and elders of the Jews come in and they pretend like they don't know them. What is that called? Hypocrisy, right? So he freaks out, Paul freaks out. From there he decides, you know what? That's it. I'm going to just focus on the people that don't have anybody, and they can focus on the people that actually already have everyone, right? And I'm going to go do the dirty work, the people that they don't want to preach to, aka the Gentiles. Okay? Peter's called to do this. I'm called to do this by God. Great. That, just so you guys know, this man, it's absurd, right? He is like, you know when they say I'm an independent person? We are not independent people. This man was an independent person. He did not care about anything except for one thing. Okay? He was independent except for one thing. Okay? So, that's 5 decisions so far. This man made 5 key decisions that literally are the reason why we're actually sitting here today. One man. Okay? One man. We're going to get to actually how this is even doable. Okay? But, so based on that, so he has those. There's another key decision that he made. At this point, he made this as a leader. What happened with Barnabas? Who's Barnabas? Anybody know who Barnabas is? I don't know. It's kind of scary because when I was reading this stuff, I was like, wait, did I read this before? This is weird because this is all new information. Yeah, we got to get on that whole Bible thing because we really are not great. Yes.
Was they one of the older, more established disciples or apostles of Christ that he was kind of the leader before Paul? He kind of was running the show.
Cool. So him and Paul become kind of teammates, right? Right? They become teammates and they're going around and they're preaching and they're doing all this stuff. Okay? And then who's also with them? Mark, right? Mark is with them, St. Mark. Our St. Mark, right? St. Mark. Yeah, good. So our St. Mark is with them, okay? And Paul and Barnabas, okay? And then they have a bunch of other apostles, Silas and a bunch of other people. But there's a disagreement between Barnabas and Paul, okay? And then Paul made the decision, there was a disagreement saying Mark left, and then Paul was we can't take him back. He's not coming back with us. Barnabas wanted to take him back, and there's a couple of other disagreements that you can all read about. But he made a decision, we're not taking him back. Whether, he had to make that decision. Whatever, in any situation, you always have to make a decision. So he did. What is the outcome of that decision? The outcome is now, not only is one church stabilized because Paul took Silas, But now 2 churches are stabilized because Barnabas, another elder, takes Mark and goes to establish another church. Right? These are the outcomes of serious decision making. Right? We're going to get into...
These stories are in the book of Acts, right?
Yes, they are. I think we all read that one too. Because
I should message people so they don't think that you are making up the story.
Oh, no, I didn't make up anything. I read this. Okay, cool. Yeah, they're all in Acts. It's better if we storytell than I ask you to read a verse, you read it like you're dying, and then we don't get anywhere and everybody's upset. Okay? So these are serious decisions. Now, how is he able to make these 7 decisions? What is decisions based off of? We went through a lot of Acts right now, right? Very cliff noted version of a lot of Acts. Okay? How are these things able to get done? God spoke to him, or he spoke to God. Cool. What do you base your decisions off of? Now, this is when we're going to have a conversation. All right? Yes.
I was going to say, I think the point that Samir brought up, his decision was made, even in his persecution, it was a zeal towards God. So I think that is the first decision that has to be made before anything proceeds on.
Perfect. Okay. A zeal towards God. Now, okay. I had a different setup, right? I have this 1, 2, 3 thing on my computer, but that's good. I like this because now we're going to just have a conversation. Okay, zeal towards God. How do you get the zeal? Okay, decision. But how do you where does that even come from?
I think I would start with knowledge.
Okay?
Yani, even in his decision to persecute people, that was based on his knowledge of his Judaic religion.
Yeah.
And even after that, after the conversion, it's based on his knowledge of God himself.
Okay. Perfect.
That has to be based on something.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
And it also be based on circumstance.
Circumstance. Okay, explain.
You go through something in your life, or you see someone else go through something in their lives, and it affects you, and it causes you to second guess or reconsider and change your priorities and get that zeal for Christ.
Perfect. Okay, so we have knowledge, we have circumstance, and then, okay, and then you're going to say something? You want to say something? Okay. Okay, so I agree with Samir, right? I think it has to start off with some knowledge, some foundation. I'm not going to have zeal towards something I don't even know about, honestly. I think for us, we already have that foundation, right? Or we have this knowledge, but a lot of us don't actually believe in the knowledge, right? We haven't tested, we haven't asked, we haven't done anything. We just accept it, right? For something that you just accept, you actually just have zeal for, right? Or is it based on searching, based on experience, based on just seeing what's right and what's wrong, and going through really terrible experiences to have zeal for something so great? Okay? But even when you have zeal towards something, you all have I compare zeal with passion. Okay? I think you can use them kind of interchangeably. Right? So even when you have passion for something, I always say every time I talk here, have passion, have a vision, blah, 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 blah. Great. Right? If you have passion or zeal for something, let's say in your life, who has zeal for something in their life? Who has passion for something in their life? Are you guys passionate about anything? Great. Okay, there's 3 people here. Guys, wow. We need to work together as a group to get more emotion and passion and stuff, and no big deal. So you have passion towards something. What is the passion based off? Ebenub, what's the passion based off?
Motivation to get to my end.
Okay, good. What is that? Give me one word to tell me about your end goal.
Like a specific end?
No, what would we call that?
Prize?
Good. A vision, right? You have a vision for where you want to go. Okay? You have zeal for something, right? And that something is basically based off your calling. When Mina, zeal is based off a calling or a passion for something, right?
Yeah, I think it's he made the choice to say, I'm gonna do this wholeheartedly. I think you can use the words interchangeably.
Cool. Okay. So, yes, we have passion, we have zeal, right? And we have a vision towards where we want to go. Now, what do we absolutely need that Paul actually had? Because what happens is, if I were to tell you, like, if I were to come to you and be like, you know what? I'm going to change your entire life. And then I just need you to follow me. And you said, okay. Okay? You said, okay. That requires what? For you to say, okay. Trust or faith, right? It requires trust or faith. Now, if I'm taking you down this road and something goes wrong, what happens? You freak out. You lose trust. Okay? What this guy had, more than, I would say, any other possible, more than any of us, is absolute conviction in Christ in the resurrection. Absolute conviction. Like, if we fathomed or had 10% of the conviction that this man had, we wouldn't do anything we do. Nothing. We would do nothing of what we do. Right? We would do nothing. We would live our lives completely differently. Yes?
If God appeared to every single one of us, we would all hate too.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it.
Wait, say that again, Irene.
Like, it's because God, like, came to him directly. Christianity existed, and he still didn't believe in it, but he didn't change until God appeared to him. So if God appeared to every single one of us, wouldn't we have as much faith?
Same God was living with Judas. Same God was living with the Pharisees, right? Like, Christ was not walking with these people. He was with them. They saw the miracles. What's a vision other than a miracle, right? Like, what's God coming to you other than a miracle? It's a miracle. Just like God did miracles everywhere else. Right? Like, and they saw it and they lived it. No, like yeah. You're gonna say something, Mike.
I was going to say what you said.
Do you want to say it in a different way? You can. Okay. No, but like, I don't believe that, right? Like, I think we all really have faith that, like, God is alive. I just don't think, like, we're convicted in it.
I mean, sorry.
Wait, you're gonna say the right answer, so let me say the right answer. I think that Christ also addressed this, like, after Thomas. He said, you know, you believe because you saw, but blessed are those who believe without seeing. So I think, like, he actually addressed this point, saying that, like, yeah, believing with seeing is, like, good, but believing without seeing is better. And that, like, if you see me in our relationship outside of physical seeing, then that's more blessed than otherwise.
Yeah. Can you give the right answer?
No, it's not the right answer. I think, I'm gonna use the appearance of Saint Mary in Zaytun, for example. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people, Christian and non-Christian, have seen her and documented. It's not like, and even me who are very skeptical about these things, I'm sorry to say that, like, these are very documented miracles and apparitions. And if people believe because of the apparition of St. Mary, Egypt would be all Christian now. Because this specific apparition lasted very long, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people have seen her. So if it's really based on seeing something, or seeing a miracle, a lot of people have seen miracle and they did not change.
Yeah, I mean.
You can also talk about the people who were alive during Christ's time.
Exactly.
Described in the Pharisees, witnessed him crucified. People saw him risen from the dead and they still didn't believe. So
Yeah.
you can see him and still not believe. You need the conviction, like you're saying.
Exactly. So where's the conviction come from? I personally believe like what Mina said, circumstance, and like going through all the things he did, watching the stonings, watching Stephen get stoned, watching all this stuff, doing all the destruction to the person that appeared to him and accepted him. I think a lot of that comes directly from that. Like he felt an obligation, he needed to sacrifice his whole life and be convicted to this new mission. Yes. One of you.
I think part of something that differentiates like a saint like St. Paul, someone who's one of the greatest saints in our church, from like an everyday person like us, is the fact that he didn't only make a decision. Like we're talking about making decisions. We all make these decisions after a retreat to like, I'm gonna devote my life to Christ. I'm gonna try my best to do this, and that better. And then the difference between what his conviction did and what our conviction does is that we don't have, or I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm just speaking we because I'm stupid. No, pretty much like, at least for myself, I know that when he has a conviction that he believes in wholeheartedly, and that's why he can wake up every day with the same conviction and decision to push himself to that goal that we were talking about earlier. I think part of the conviction that we as like a generation have lost, or as like a church maybe have lost, is because we don't know, like you said, he has a zeal to, even before when he was persecuting the Christians, that he did it because he loved God so much that he was killing all these people. So we don't even have sometimes that conviction that what we're doing is what we believe in.
Right.
Like that decision making that I'm doing this because I believe it, not because I'm not standing as a deacon in church because I need to like sing for people. I'm standing because I want to attend. Like you get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
making that decision with a reason behind it. You're not just making a decision that's for show or just because you're told to. And I think that's the difference between his conviction and zeal for what he was doing and what ours or mine specifically.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think the only difference from like the saints and most Christian people is simply that there was a decision made and he stuck with that decision. It's the same thing with Judas. Paul had the sincere desire to serve God, whether he saw it in Judaism first and found the truth in Christianity.
Yeah.
Judas was with Christ, but his desire wasn't sincere. So
Yeah.
it's not so much about the action, it's the decision that you choose to make to, I guess what we were trying to get to is where your vision is, where you're trying to go. And St. Paul is very, very clear in his decision in preaching the gospel and like spreading the kingdom.
So, I know I'm going to give it to you. Yes, actually, you say.
I had a somewhat different view on this.
Yeah.
I see that people who have converted have more faith than those who are already in the religion. So I see it as like, because we are in it, we take it for granted.
Okay.
Whereas someone who converted is like, oh, I'm finally able to believe in something and it's right.
Okay. I agree with you. So after like thinking about this for a long time, like I just like didn't have a clue. But then I just started thinking about the decisions I make on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, why am I doing my career? Why am I doing the things I do, right? And we always say, everybody says my career is so I can glorify God. My career is so, I was telling Samir this, I'm doing this because if I do this really well, I can help so many people, right? What is the thing I said the most in that sentence? I. All right? I said I so many times, right? I said I so many times. I can do this. I can do that. God gave me this, so I will do it. I will do this. I will do. Everything I say is I, right? I was able to get this because I went through this. What happened to this guy is it stopped being I. Like it wasn't I anymore. It wasn't I. It was him, right? Every time you read in the scripture, people think St. Paul is the cockiest apostle in the world, right? But every single time he refers back to the cross. He refers back to Christ. It is not me. The glory be to Christ. It is not I, but the glory be to Christ. I endure these things. Why? For Christ, right? Because Christ endured, right? Every decision that we make in our lives, guys, is I. I'm doing this because I have the ability to do it, right? So Wow, that's annoying. So, if you take a step back in your life, right? If you take a step back in your life, how many decisions do you make on a day-to-day basis that is based off I? And how many people do you actually take into account when you make that decision? Simply going throughout your day without picking up the phone. Simply not checking up on somebody. Simply being too busy for people that need us, for Christ. All of that is because I'm only thinking about I. That's it. The last thing he thought about is himself. Right? He talks about a lot about endurance, running the race, doing this, doing that. Half this guy's life is about, at least in Acts and all those stories, sacrifice. He didn't go to Rome for the last time, even though he had 1 million friends there, right? Because he had to sacrifice, because Rome was good. Rome had a church. Rome was fine, right? They were flourishing. And he could have went there. He could have chilled with them. He could have hung out. He could have did all this stuff. But it wasn't about I. It wasn't about him being comfortable. It wasn't about him being happy. Right? This guy is the most independent person only because he wasn't independent. Right? I told you this guy, most independent apostle. He was not. He was the most dependent apostle. He was the most dependent apostle on Christ and nobody else. No one. Not Peter, not James, not Silas, not Barnabas, nobody. He didn't need anyone except for Christ. So the conviction comes when you are convicted in him. And until that happens, it's not happening. We can say anything we want. We can talk about anything we want. We can make up all the BS we want. Right? We can do all of that. We can sit up here and tell you everything you do is for Christ. No, it's because you want to live a good life. And you want to be glorified. You want to be happy. Right? This guy didn't care about happiness. He just cared about the kingdom. That's it. It's just straight up. He made a decision. I choose the kingdom or I don't choose the kingdom. And that's it. So, are you convicted in the kingdom or are you not convicted in the kingdom? We could talk about like some things about how to be convicted and like how to stay convicted and all that stuff. If you guys want, do we have time? Do we have time? It's up to you.
Yeah,
All right. So, all right. 1 second, guys. All right. All right, guys. So, we'll just go over something real quick. How do we make better decisions? Right? We're convicted with Christ. It starts becoming about him. But literally, I can't do that unless what? There's one simple thing, right? Like, how do I know what he wants? How is he guiding me? Constant communication. Constant communication. Think about the worst times in your life and think about when you're the farthest from God, and it's probably in correlation when you're not talking to him. I vouch. Number one. All right? So, constant communication. Your decisions. Who do they affect? Who do they affect? Your decisions. Who do they affect? Huh?
Like the person making it.
Good. So you? Everyone around you? Good. You, everybody around you and God. Right? So, the fact is, like, you're not, you think, like, making a decision about not, let's say, for example, I didn't come last week. That decision, yes, not only did it affect my spiritual life, but all those people that depend on you, it affects them just as much as it affects you. You may not figure it out now, you'll figure it out later on. Right? So before you make a decision, think about, all right, this is how it affects me. This is how it affects everybody around me. This affects Christ. Right? We always ask, what would Jesus do? We should probably be asking, why wouldn't Jesus do this? Because it's stupid. So, all right. So that also goes hand in hand with actually like preparing for the consequences of your actions. All right? Like, guys, when we like do Mina Awad, when you sit there and like talk to George, the consequence is I'm going to slap you. No, seriously. So when we do these actions, there's always a consequence. It's either going to come hit you now or it will come hit you later on. Right? Or it becomes a lifestyle, habitual lifestyle that just slowly basically kills you. All right. I'm starting to lose people now, but it's okay. We are starting to lose people. It's going to be fine. So we're going to just ask questions. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I just want to, I don't know if we lost people or not.
Everybody started like losing their mind.
I just want to emphasize the point that Mina have made, and regardless of the decision that you're going to make, this decision is going to have consequences. Remember that very well. Any decision, you have the right to do whatever you want. You have the right to do whatever, that's your choice, that's your will, that's your freedom. You can choose to do whatever you want. Okay? But remember that any choice and any decision that you're going to make is going to have consequences. If the consequences are bad, please don't blame God for a bad consequence of your wrong decision. Because this is what we are getting. And why this is happening in my life? I'm sorry it happened in your life because you made the wrong decision. So don't blame God for a bad consequence that happened because of a wrong decision. Again, choose whatever you want. But remember, every small decision is going to come with a consequence.
So how do you go about making the correct decision? Practically.
I think that's where the what would Jesus do kind of thing comes into play. Someone says, here's a bowl of crack. Smoke crack with me. Clearly, you should know that the right decision would be to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, obviously it's not going to be that cut and dry all the time. Like, something, both options might seem okay. But for the most part, when it comes to things that are really going to lead you to a life of sin, I feel like the answer is pretty clear. And most of the time, you know that this option B is the wrong decision, but there's still a part of you that kind of wants to take option B. It's, I think, which I think also comes with life lessons too, learning to go with the better decision, even though you might want to go with the bad one.
So how do you actually, the question was, how do you make the right decision? Right? You just simply make the right decision by choosing what's right. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, I just want to say what's right is based on what Mina said at the beginning, is what your vision and your goal in life. So if, for example, I made a decision to come to the meeting today, I definitely had the choice to go to a bar. Instead of going to the meeting, I have the choice, I made the decision to come to the meeting, okay? A decision to come to the meeting instead of going to the bar is based on my goals in life. If my goal in life is to make money, I'm going to stay home and make money instead of coming to the meeting. The decision in my life is based on your goal, the kingdom, in Him, what Mina have said in the beginning. I don't know if you got the idea or not. Like when the decision is in Him, when the goal is in Him, the decision is going to be toward Him. When the goal is fame, or I'm going to be toward being famous. When my decisions are to be wealthy, or my decisions are gonna be to cheat, to bribe, to how to act that I wanna make money. Okay, so the decision that we make in our life is based on what's the goal in my life, and I think that's what Mina, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's what Mina said in the beginning. That's in Him. If it's in Him, if you are living in Him, we're gonna make the right decision.
Marina.
I think we can clearly see that too, and throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, every single person that was conflicted with something had to make certain decisions, and the way it all played out, like, is the way we should do it as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like Moses, when he had to lead the people, he had to make that decision. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, and he decided to take that path because he knew what his goal was, like Samir said. So I think like following each example that we have in the Bible, like that in and of itself, I feel like we can just learn from that.
All right.
Mina wants to say something.
Yes.
So I'll tell you something that practically works for me, I think, for outside the goal of crack. For example, like in real-time decisions where you have to make like quick decisions, career or whatnot. I think for me personally, this is what I found works best, which is first and foremost you pray, or you start with Christ, and then practically speaking, you seek counsel from somebody you trust or somebody you admire. And third, you use your rational logic to make the decision at the end. And I think outside of that, you can stand in front of God and say, I did what I could.
Yeah.
And when you make a decision in that way, I don't think you'll regret much, whatever decision it was. Even if it's the wrong decision, you did everything within your God-given power to make it.
Yeah.
Practically speaking.
Guy, I want your attention for one more minute. Let me just be like really, really clear. All right? Just because you are here doesn't mean like thank you for being here. You're doing great. Thank you. But do not fool yourself in leading a life by coming here and then leading a life by living outside of this life. All right? You cannot have it both ways. It's the bottom line. You cannot have it both ways. In your beliefs, your understanding, any of that stuff. You cannot have it both ways. You either are convicted by Christ or you're convicted by the world. There's no double standard. There's no like intermingling. Okay? There's no compromise with that. Nothing. Either convicted by the world or you're convicted by Christ. That's it. When you sin, you get up and you get back to your conviction to Christ. If you don't want to do that, you are convicted by the world. That's it. Do not fool yourselves. Make sure you do not fool yourselves. Because what happens when you fool yourself? You keep fooling yourself for a really long time until negative consequences catch up to you. And then you're in a lot more trouble than when you started. All right? Do not fool yourself. That's the worst thing you can do. Okay? Figure out where your conviction lies. Figure out what your decisions are based off of. Are they based off of Him or are they based off of I? That's it. Thank you.